Hello, welcome to another episode of Wander and Create with Emma. If this is your first time here, my name's Emma of Wander and Create with Emma, which is not only the name of this channel, but all my social medias and website. I've been a passionate knitter and crocheter for over 10 years now and started designing and publishing my own patterns just around 2 years ago in 2022. This episode is for new, beginner and wannabe knit and crochet pattern designers. As someone who's still very much an amateur designer myself, I wanted to share with you the resources, and by resources I mean people, websites, tools and other things that I have found useful in my learning journey, kind of starting with the design process itself through to tech editing, testing and promoting your pattern. But before I get into all of that, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, as in the next episode I'm going to be sharing all the valuable lessons I've learned in the last couple of years as an amateur designer, as well as the mistakes and messes I've made so that you don't have to. And just a quick note before we get into it all, I just want to mention that anything that I talk about over the course of this episode, I have not been paid to do so. I do not have affiliate marketing connections with any of them. These are simply just resources that I use or have bought myself and found really helpful and want to share with you. I've got nothing to gain from doing this apart from my love to share information and what I've been learning. And once you've watched this video, please share in the comments below other resources that you yourself have found helpful, because I'd love to hear about them and I'm sure other people would like to know about them as well. Okay, so starting with the design process itself, there are many resources I've used to kind of help me think about what I need to incorporate when I'm designing a new pattern, things I need to think about, and then tools that will help me to grade and write the pattern. So the first resource I want to recommend is the Craft Yarn Council, and that's for when you're designing a piece that's like an item of clothing or socks that can be graded to different sizes. Craft Yarn Council give a really good kind of standardized measurement for body sizes from children to adults. They provide measurements that go up to a 62-inch chest, a 52-inch waist, and then a 62 hip, so fairly size inclusive. It kind of gives that, it goes up to a 5X in that sizing that they provide. So I find that a really good starting point. Another website that I found really useful from the start till now that I still use is Sister Mountain, and I believe she is under the same name on Instagram as well. But her website is full of blog posts all about designing knit patterns. It's also useful for crochet as well, even if she's kind of knitting focused, the same kind of reasoning applies to crochet work too. The one free resource she has on her website that has been brilliant, and I use it in almost every pattern where I've needed to grade sizes, is the yardage calculator that she has. So this is a free downloadable spreadsheet, and you can use this spreadsheet to calculate the yarn yardage estimates for your pattern. So you've obviously made one sample, you can type in the measurements, the size of your sample, the weight of your sample, the weight of the yarn you've used, etc. Pop that in, and the formulas are already there that it will give you the estimates across the size ranges of your pattern design. It's great and it's free. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more, but honestly I recommend just having a look at the Sister Mountain website, because it's full of other pieces as well, from how to upload your pattern to Ravelry, designing sweaters. I think she's got a sweater design school coming up as well. I haven't taken it myself, but I'm sure based on the resources I have used of hers that it'd be really valuable and interesting to take. Another couple of designers that I have found to be a wealth of knowledge are Sarah Woolworth and Christine McGrath of Tech Tip Talk. Now this is a website and a YouTube channel. So these two are pattern designers and they're also tech editors, so they're experts in their field. In their YouTube channel they haven't posted for a little while, but they have a series of episodes there to watch where they talk with other designers, and you just learn so much from watching them. What designers have to say, their own knowledge as well, kind of sharing with each other. And then last year they also published this book. It's about writing knitting patterns. Again, although it's knitting focused, the same would apply for crochet, but this book is brilliant. It walks you through everything from the designing, how to write patterns, testing patterns, etc. It's written in a really clear, concise way. There's diagrams where needed. It kind of gives you the why things are important. For example, having a style sheet, which is something I'm yet to do, but why it's important to make sure you're creating consistent patterns that are kind of on your brand, so everyone will know, you know, the patterns that you design become familiar because they're all created and styled in a consistent way. So yeah, this book is worth every penny. Although I personally didn't buy it, my mum bought it for me for Christmas, but it was worth all of her pennies because it's just been great this year for me to use and really helped with my pattern writing. And like, I haven't got my style sheet yet, but I will be working on it because I really appreciate the value of it. To stay on that theme of designers that are on YouTube, there's a whole load of people out there. For example, there's Andrea Mowry. She publishes a weekly video where she answers questions that viewers have submitted to her, often asking like technical questions or design questions, sizing questions, etc. And she'll answer, and you know, she's a huge designer. She's been designing patterns for years. I've made quite a few of them. I know they're really well designed and thought through, so I really kind of trust her knowledge that she shares. The same for Jorge Locatelli. In her YouTube videos, you know, she'll quite often talk about her designing process, what she thinks about, what she takes into consideration when she's designing a piece, stitch patterns, etc. So following knitwear designers on YouTube, watching their videos, you know, you learn a lot from them. But the same can be said for other makers as well. I subscribe to lots of channels of different knitting crochet makers on YouTube. I don't know if you can see them from my profile, but I'll share some in the description below, where I'll also be showing all the things that I've talked about here, so you can have a look below after watching this video. But for example, I was watching an old Fruity Knitting episode earlier this week, and they were showing the cardigan like steeking project that they'd recently done. I'm yet to be brave enough to try steeking anything, but just through them sharing their experience of like following that pattern and doing the steeking, I learned a lot more about the process and things to kind of look out for the time when I do kind of get the courage to try a project like that myself. So just kind of watching your peers, learning from them, sharing experiences, I've just found that's kind of great in kind of enhancing my knowledge. Making in general, but also designing, it kind of gives you things to think about when you're designing a pattern, because you've heard how other people have experienced other patterns that maybe haven't been written so well or a bit confusing, etc. Next up is tech editing, and like how to find and work with tech editors. So I have to confess that the first couple of patterns I released, which were they were both hat patterns, I didn't have them tech edited. And my thinking at the time was that I couldn't financially afford to have a person tech edit my patterns. They were tested. I had a handful of testers for each one, so that was helpful, but at the time I didn't get them tech edited and I released them. I think they're good patterns, but they probably would value like having a look at them now. You know, not only have I learnt more in the last 2 years, but I think I've noticed repeated things I've cropped up that tech editors have spotted in my patterns, I'm sure in those ones too. So although they're good patterns, I think having a tech editor look at them retrospectively would be great. So that's a future plan I have for next year. But anyway, by my third design, where I wasn't making a hat, I'd kind of convinced myself that I would really like to have a tech editor and that maybe I should pursue like how much that would cost and what it would look like. So to do so, I found the Tech Editor Hub. And when I was approaching this website, it's really simple to use. You simply just pop in a form that describes yourself, the patterns that you're working on, the designs you have. At the time when I was exploring this, I actually had 2 patterns. I had a crochet pattern and a knitted pattern. So I was looking for either a tech editor that could do both or one in each. Yeah, and like I say, all you had to do was fill in this form, you submit it, and then you get a bunch of proposals sent your way from different tech editors kind of all around the world. It couldn't be easier for the designer really. The only hard bit was looking through everybody's kind of submissions and picking and selecting who you wanted to work with, which was really hard because everyone was really generous and like giving you know, who they are, what they can do, their services. And I ended up picking 2, like one for knitting and one for crochet. And these 2 people that I selected are people that I still work with now and have worked with on all my patterns since, because I've just found them to be really great people to work with. So for my knitting patterns, I work with Jara Robbins of Robbins Tech Edits. She's so great. She notices everything. She's so precise and fantastic. Did I say crochet patterns? She's for crochet patterns. For my knitting patterns, I use Hannah of Work of Our Hands. She's also brilliant. She's very supportive, very positive. And honestly, the things that they find is incredible. Like, they're obviously doing their job, but I can't believe, you know, the tiny things that I have missed that they find. But also just in having a tech editor, it has taught me even more about pattern designing. Like, they're thinking of things that I hadn't considered, that was kind of missing from my patterns, etc. So the whole process of having a tech editor, you know, it's worth every penny. Even if, you know, I'm ending up going into negative because my patterns don't sell as much, so I've paid the tech editor, I really think it's great to have them. So my biggest recommendation for resources in tech editing is to get a tech editor and using Tech Editor Hub to find them, because it's really easy. Having it tech edited really means that you can ensure the quality and integrity of your patterns by saying that they have been professionally tech edited. Before I get into the next two pieces for the testing and the promotion of the patterns, I just wanted to mention that all of this I have summarized into a blog post below, so you can find that along with all the links in the description below, and you can subscribe to my newsletter where you'll get updates from me like this sent directly to your inbox, so go check that out. Okay, so testing your patterns. This is really kind of best practice when you're designing a pattern, unless you're super confident in what you've written and you've had it tech edited and you're pretty confident that the pattern is going to work for everybody. I think it seems general standard practice that you would get it tested. So I don't have one single place where I have got testers from. I've kind of been experimenting with the best place, and I wouldn't say for me personally I found a best place. You know, I have a pretty small presence online and, you know, on my social medias, on here, etc. So my reach doesn't get too far when I put posts out there in the world. So to begin with, I start with Instagram. I'll publish a reel, I'll publish a post, I'll have the link to the Google form that I create. That's probably actually a resource using Google, because all their, like, the free documents, free forms, etc. So I use a Google form that people can fill out their name, their address, what size they're interested in testing, etc. And that's what I use to then review and select testers. So I'll put the link to that in the bio, or, you know, I try and have that kind of engagement question of, if you're interested, put test below and I'll send you a link. You know, that's another approach, but it doesn't always work for me. So I can get a few testers from Instagram, but ideally I want a few more. So then I've been looking to Ravelry, which I know Ravelry is not accessible to everybody, but I have found it a good place to get testers from. There's a forum on there called the Testing Pool for both knitting, crochet and other fabric crafts. You simply, just the same as you would on Instagram, you create a post with a photo of your pattern, you know, all the information that you think people will need before they decide if they would be up for applying or not, link to the form, etc. And that has worked fairly well for me as well. So I tend to get a handful of people from Instagram and Ravelry, and that comes together to make my testing group. There's one other resource that I haven't used yet but I know of, which is Yarn Pond. I think that's another place that designers and testers kind of come together. It's something I may explore in the future, but for now I've just been using Instagram and Ravelry. But because they're from two different sets, it kind of doesn't really work to, you know, people on Instagram might not be on Ravelry, people on Ravelry are not necessarily on Instagram, so creating an Instagram group doesn't necessarily work, creating something in Ravelry doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So I tend to resort to email chains. Unfortunately, in the past I have had all Instagram groups if a pattern's been particularly popular for some reason on Instagram, and I've managed to get enough testers just through Instagram alone. I've tried to create an Instagram group because when I've personally been a part of testing groups for other designers, it's been an Instagram group, and that has worked for me a handful of times. But the last time I tried to do it, there was some glitch where it was not letting me create a group, and I couldn't resolve it. I couldn't work out what was going on, so I ended up having to do an email chain. So now I'm kind of just sticking with email chains because I don't want to faff about with Instagram glitches. It delays the start of the testing period. You know, people have nowhere to chat if they need to ask me anything. So I've been sticking with email chains, and there's pros and cons to that. If it's a long email chain, it can get a bit confusing to keep track of. I found sometimes people reply to all and share like their questions with the group. Others will just come directly to me, so it's kind of hard to track who knows what, and I will update when I've made changes so everyone knows in case it hasn't been a reply all situation. So I've been doing that. So it's just kind of making the best of the situation, kind of understanding that things aren't accessible to everybody, but kind of everyone has an email address, so go with that if possible. Instagram is glitchy, Ravelry can be inaccessible for some, so I've been using email. I have heard other designers use Discord, so that's again another thing I want to look for in the future, because that could be quite a handy space to get everybody and probably be a bit more clearer in terms of like following when there's been updates or changes or questions asked about the pattern. And then there's also a couple of Instagram accounts that you can contact and ask them to share the call out. For example, the size inclusive Instagram account, as long as your pattern is size inclusive and there's a fair kind of testing period for the pattern, they're usually great at sharing it. And there's another account which I can't remember the name of right now, so I'll write it here, and they've also been sharing pattern call outs as well, so you can look to them to support you. There's probably other accounts too, if you know them, share in the comments below. If you're an experienced pattern tester, let me know what you have found works best for you when you're testing a pattern. Do you prefer emails, Discord, Ravelry, Instagram? Like, what's your preference? Because I'd love to know them. Okay, so my final section for sharing resources for beginner designers is all about resources for helping to promote your patterns. Before we get into this section, I do feel the need to clarify that anything I share here hasn't meant that it has led me directly to successful pattern launches. I'm still very much working on this, but the things that I've shared and the people, the resources I found useful, I think really help you learn what you need to do, what you need to think about. So although I'm not saying do this and you'll be super successful, maybe you will be, but for me I still think I've got a lot of learning and applying to do. But I think these are the people and resources to work with while doing that. This really is the main area that I need to work on myself. I'm getting better as a designer. It's all about the promotion, because that's the key at the end of the day. You want the patterns to sell. They're not going to sell if you're not good at marketing them. Marketing is not my strong point, it's not who I am, but if I want to be successful in this, is what I need to do and learn, so I'm willing to put in the time. Okay, so the first person and their resource is Tian Connaughton. She has a book called The Pattern Launch Plan, and that talks you through all the things you need to think about when you're getting ready to launch your pattern and after that. As she says very frequently on her social media posts, it's not just a post once and you're done. You need to continually be posting and reminding everybody about your patterns, because they're not going to find them otherwise. So I have bought this pattern launch book. I found it really helpful to think about in planning the promotional materials around my pattern. And I follow her on social media. She's always posting really useful content, and I think she is someone that I would love to work with more in the future. Again, it's been the financial reason for me. I know sometimes you have to kind of invest to get back, but it's just something that I haven't stepped into yet, but maybe want to. But anyway, I recommend following her on social media, looking at her website, and even purchasing the pattern launch book. I think it's $28 US, I think, but again, worth it. The other person is Pam of the Crochetprenuer. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Pam. Although she's focused on crochet, again, I think a lot of what she says is relevant to knitting as well. So she's kind of all about how you have and grow a crochet business. Her mission is to empower women to grow their own business and be successful in their business. She's another person that creates a lot of free content, and then also has a lot of paid courses and groups and stuff, which again I would love to be a part of. I think there's a lot of valuable information to gain and connecting with other peers that are part of the membership group in the future. At the moment, this year's all been about recovering from all the traveling we did last year, where we spent a lot of money setting ourselves back up in Vancouver, getting a job, which has taken me 6 months to get a well-paying job where I have the ability to kind of start saving again. So maybe it's a 2025 thing. But anyway, the Crochetprenuer, every year she has a crochet business summit. It's free to attend, and she'll invite lots of different crochet business makers and designers to speak on their experience on several different topics, from managing your finances, designing patterns, promoting patterns, etc. And it's all for free, which is brilliant. So I really recommend checking her out, signing up to the Business Summit. She also has a YouTube channel where she shares loads of valuable information and experience, and just so much free content that's awesome. And then obviously if you're willing to pay, you can get even more out of it. And although I haven't done it yet, I fully trust that it will be totally worth the money. And then again, in general, like when you have your pattern ready to promote, I haven't found like one solid place for selling my patterns. I've had like pattern purchases from various different places. You know, I have the Etsy, I have my Ravelry, I have my own website pattern store. But then I have found there's a forum thread on Ravelry that's like new designs for each month. I've posted on there and that's had some success when I've had new patterns released. I've joined a number of Facebook groups. You know, there's hundreds of Facebook groups for knitting and crochet. I try and remember every time I've released a pattern to post in at least a few of those groups. That has led to some success, having this YouTube channel, and people have also very kindly bought the patterns off the back of watching these videos, which I'm super grateful for, and it's really kind of you. So yeah, I haven't found one solid place that's like, this is my place. I know some designers have that. I know some people will say Etsy is the best, other people Ravelry, other people just, you know, have a stronger, bigger following on social media so they can link to their website, and that's been great. Maybe I'm not expert or experienced enough in this promotion piece yet, but as I say, I haven't had mega success with pattern sales yet, but I think I've found the people that will really help me get there when I have the time and apply it properly myself. Actually, that has made me think of one additional thing that's not knitting and crochet related actually, but just in general, like websites for promoting yourself, and all about SEO, which I know is huge. I think Pam with the Crochetprenuer talks about Etsy SEO to learn, but there's also someone who's actually comes from a travel blogging space, but I find her YouTube really helpful. It's called Nina Knows SEO, and she posts loads of YouTube videos, and it is about website design, so you know, it may not be interesting, but I actually think it's really helpful, and I have applied some of the stuff that she talks about that will help increase kind of visits to your website. And although she is more targeting travel bloggers, again, I feel a lot of it can apply to any person with a website trying to sell a service or get people to come to their site. So I recommend her too as a kind of non-knitting crochet person, but with a lot of valuable things as a new person trying to promote themselves. So that just about wraps up all the resources that I have to share with you. I hope you found it helpful. As I said before, like if you have other resources or people that you use, follow, listen to, etc. that's helped you in your design process, please share them below. I'd love to hear them. I'm sure other people would as well. And please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. As I mentioned, my next episode will be sharing confessions of a messy designer, me. And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it and have a great week.